welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're doing well. Welcome to another video and welcome back to another monthly wrap-up. Today I'm going to sit down and talk about all of the books that I was able to read in the month of September, how everything went, my highs, my lows, and everything in between. This video is going to be long per usual, so grab a snack, grab a drink, and without further ado, let's get into my stats. So for the month of September, I was able to read a total of 19 books. Those 19 books equaled out to 7,318 pages, with an average of 244 pages a day and 385 pages per book. I listened to 220 audiobook hours. For my formats, I read 11 mixed media books, 6 audiobooks, and 2 ebooks. Continuing on with my formats, I read 17 novels and 2 novellas. As for my star rating breakdown, I read 2 5 stars, 4 4.5 stars, 5 4 stars, 4 3.5 stars, 2 3 stars, and 2 2.5 stars, which puts me at an average rating of 3.84. For my genre breakdown, I read 14 romances, 3 fantasies, and 2 fantasy romances. I read a total of 13 adult books, 5 new adult books, and 1 YA. Moving on to my representation, this is standard representation, mental health, illness, disability. I read 6 books where it was represented in the main character, 3 where it was present in a side character, which means that 10 of the books that I read this month had no rep at all. For that rep breakdown, I read 7 books with mental health rep, 1 book with illness rep, and 1 book with disability rep. Moving on to my LGBTQI plus representation, I read 3 books where the main character was part of the community, 5 where a side character was part of the community, and 12 books where it was absent altogether. And again, to further break that down, I read 4 queer books, 2 books with bisexuality rep, and 1 book with lesbian rep. Another disappointing month with POC author rep. Unfortunately, I read no authors of color this month. All 19 books I read this month were written by women. 16 of those books were part of a series, and 3 of them were standalones. To further break that down, I started a total of 9 series. I continued on with 3 series, and I finished 2 series. 16 of the books that I read this month I read for the very first time, and 3 of them were rereads. For how I acquired these books, 10 of them I bought myself, 5 of them came in book boxes, 1 I read through Kindle Unlimited, 1 book was gifted to me, 1 book I read through Scribe, and 1 book I read through the library. Second to last, I have my publication years. I read 1 book from 2023, 4 books published in 2022, 6 books from 2021, 2 books published in 2019, 1 book from 2018, 1 book published in 2017, 1 book published in 2016, 1 book published in 2015, 1 book published in 2014, and finally 1 book published in 2013. And lastly, we have my book cover color breakdown. I read 9 books with a black cover, 3 books with a gray cover, 2 blue books, 2 white books, 1 red book, 1 orange book, and 1 green book. Alright, that is all of my stats. I do love a good stats section. It just brings my heart so much warmth. But we have 19 books to talk about, so I'm just gonna jump right in with my very first book of the month. Okay, I started the month off strong with Daughter of No World by Carissa Broadbent. This is a story that follows Tasana. The beginning of the story, she is a slave, and she has spent the last several years saving up money to buy her freedom. The day that she goes in to buy her freedom, something very terrible happens, and she ends up on the run. She goes to this city where order magic and orders are placed so that she can learn from a mentor, learn order magic, and go back to free her friends and family that have been stuck in the place where she has run from. And she ends up not being able to be trained by any of the official teachers, so she gets settled with a retired teacher who wants nothing to do with training Tasana, but eventually she breaks down his walls and he does end up teaching her order magic, and it is a fantasy romance between the two of them. Also a very heavily plotted fantasy story. I would say the first book in the series is definitely more fantasy than it is romance, but I've heard great things about the romance as the series continues, and I am very excited to see what this book continues to do, what this book series continues to do, and where the author takes this world and these characters. I ended up giving this book a 4-star. I felt like the pacing of this was a little bit slow at times when I needed a little bit more, but other than that, I really enjoyed the world building and the way that this author built these characters up, and I really enjoyed the latter half of the book when the magic became a lot more involved in the story, and we really got to understand some of the hints and clues that were dropped at the very beginning in the prologue and how it was going to pertain to the rest of the series. Really enjoyed this. Cannot wait to read on. I am picking up book 2 in October, so hopefully I like it just as much or even more, and I'm very excited to read on with more of Carissa Broadbent's work. Alright, the next book that I read is Heaven. This is by Darcy Rose. This is not a book that I really enjoyed. This one follows a girl who has been in love with her stepbrother for as long as she can remember, and when she turns 18 she wants to pursue that relationship, but he knows for the first time that he's attracted to his stepsister in ways that he never was before, but he definitely brushes her off and pushes her away, so she decides, okay, you know what, I'm not going to wait around for him. I want to go lose my virginity. She ends up at a club, a sex club called Purgatory, and she ends up losing her virginity to her stepbrother. It is a relationship between the two of them. It's a short little novella. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. The writing was bad. The plot was bad. The pacing was bad. The idea around this relationship was bad. Everything was just not great. The sex was good. And I think that the potential of this world with the sex club and everything that it could entail is very intriguing and definitely has a lot of potential. I just didn't love this first book in the series. That being said, I will move on to the second book in the series because I'm very curious to see what this series can hold and if it can get any better than this. And I believe that every book in this series is written by a different author, so that gives me more hope that it's going to be better because it's not going to be the same writing style as book one. I did give this one a 2.5 star. Not a great way to, you know, continue on with the month, but it is what it is. You win some, you lose some. Shifting gears, I read something a little bit different for my usual reading, and that is Pumpkin Everything. I don't remember the author of this one, but I will leave it up on the screen. This one follows a girl that is going back to her hometown because her grandfather has driven his car into a Dunkin' Donuts. He is old and has mistaken the gas for the brake, and she's going back to take care of him, help him get situated back in his life, and to make sure that he doesn't get sent to a home and that their family store doesn't get closed down. Their family owns a store called Pumpkin Everything where they sell pumpkin everything. When she gets back into town, she runs into her ex, and they were best friends for a really long time before they got into a relationship. So this is a second chance ex-best friend romance, and I found this very, very sweet, very wholesome, very cute. It is definitely written like a Hallmark movie. It was turned into a Hallmark movie, so it definitely has Hallmark vibes. How many times can I say that word in just a few short moments? But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was sweet. I thought it was very heartwarming. It gave everything that it was supposed to give. I gave it a 3-star, solid 3-star. It was a fun read, and it was great for the fall season to kick off fall. It's not a new favorite by any means, but I did really enjoy it, and I would like to read the second book in the series. Then I read my first reread of the month, and that is The Dare by Harley Laroe. I did read this one last year, and I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it the same amount this time around. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is a short little novella that follows a girl named Jessica who was known for being the bully of her high school. She used to bully this one boy in particular. His name is Mason, and they both end up at the same Halloween party together where they end up in a game of beer pong, but it's dare or drink edition, and at the end of the night, if she loses, she ends up having to become his slave for the night. And spoiler alert, she does lose, and she does become his slave for the night, and it is filled with like a degradation, kink-filled, fun little novella time. It was great. It's so fun. It's so fast-paced. It's very, 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 very spicy. Harley Laroe is known for writing spicy books, so I am not surprised in the slightest by this one, and I had a great time with it. It was a great reread. It definitely put me in the mindset to pick up the full-length novel in this series, and I'm really glad that I reread it. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Up next, I read Heartless Heathens by Santana Knox. This is a dystopian kind of gothic slight retelling of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but make it white shoes. This follows a girl who is locked in a tower by this man that runs a very religious school. She has never left the tower, never seen anybody really other than the man that has locked her up there. And one day these 3 boys come into the school under grounds of taking it over. They're very well known, very prolific, and the headmaster of the school is definitely afraid of them. They end up taking residence in the old abandoned church where she is locked up in the tower above, and she ends up getting discovered, and they all fall in love. It is a white shoes romance. This one follows 2 twin brothers, and then like kind of like a step-brother situation, adoptive brother, if you will. But I really enjoyed this. I thought that it was very fun, very dark, very sexy. I did like the dystopian aspect of this. It was very thought-provoking because in all actuality, if things were to go down a very dark, dark road, our world could end up like this, and I thought that was very interesting. These characters definitely went above and beyond for their woman, and very touch her and you die type of situation. They were all very cutthroat. You also had some disability rep in here with one of the characters that dealt with really bad epileptic episodes, so that was really interesting to read about. And overall, I did really enjoy it. I would definitely say check the trigger warnings on this one as well as the kink warnings, because some of this gets very dark and very involved, but I did really enjoy it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Up next, I read A Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. This one follows Huxley and Lottie, and they end up in a very interesting fake dating situation. Basically, Huxley is this billionaire business mogul who really wants to close a deal, and he knows that the person that he needs to close the deal with is very much like a family man, very family oriented, very personal life oriented, and he ends up running into him on the streets, and he bumps into him and his very pregnant fiance. And in order to secure more time with him, Huxley lies and says that he also has a fiance who is also pregnant. However, he does not have that, so he is now on the lookout for somebody that can fill that role. Lottie has just been fired from her job and is in dire need of money. She has had to move in with her sister because she cannot afford to pay her rent, and she's on the hunt for a billionaire to basically give her money. She needs a sugar daddy. And she ends up running into Huxley on the river, and they come to an agreement where she will fake date him and become his fake fiance and fake pregnant fiance, and he will help with her student loans and getting everything situated back in her life. As you can probably assume, things change from there, and the chemistry ignites between the two of them, and the fake feelings turn into some real feelings quite quickly. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is one of those books that has a very, very good mix of romance and emotion, but also humor and everything in between. It was so funny. There is a particular scene in here that literally, I was laughing so hard, out loud, audibly laughing, because it was hilarious. I had a stitch in my side. I was freaking dying. And that's just one of the many scenes that cracked me up in this. I think that Lottie and Huxley had a really great chemistry and really incredible banter. They did not take shit from one another and were really willing to push the limits and the boundaries of what each other was able and capable of taking from them, but also in a respectful way that felt very authentic and real. I really, really enjoyed this one. I'm excited to move on with the rest of the series that follows the other two Kane brothers, and I'm really excited to see what else this author comes out with. Next up, I decided to pick up Losers Part 1 by Harley LaRoe, the full-length novel following The Dare, and I really, really enjoyed this. This turns into a full White Shoes romance that I loved. I loved it so much. It was so fun. Harley LaRoe has a way of writing smut that is absolutely so hot, and you were just unable to look away as the scenes are unfolding. And I loved it. I love a good White Shoes romance. Nothing is going to change that. And this is definitely a really good one if you're looking for a fantastic, fun, and honestly kind of sweet romance. It is filled with all of the kinks, lots of degradation and humiliation kinks. So please check the triggers and the kinks before you go into the series. But I loved it so much. Even though these men are, you know, not willing to give up what they want from this main character, there's still a lot of sweetness that comes from these characters, and they truly do care for her so much. This one does leave off kind of open-ended, and there is a second book in this series, so if you are willing to tackle two chunky White Shoes romances, I do recommend it. I don't want to really talk about the synopsis of this one, but I will just say that Jessica ends up in a situation where she owes these 4 guys more than she's able to afford, and in order for payment, they make her their slave. It's very similar to The Dare, but definitely different in a lot of ways. And you are introduced to all of these characters in The Dare, so I definitely recommend reading that one before. It does recap The Dare relatively well, but if you want the backstory, I definitely highly recommend it. I would recommend reading The Dare first and then jump into this one, and they're all so good. I give this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Up next, I read Sabotage. This is by Chantal Tessier. This is one of the books in the Lords series, and this one follows Colton and Rayleigh. They are stepbrother and stepsister, and they have a very, very toxic and unhealthy relationship with each other. When Rayleigh turned 18 or maybe 21, Colton took her virginity, and she has been his plaything ever since. It is a romance between the two of them after they realize that their relationship goes much more beyond sex, and they decide that they want to pursue a more long-term relationship. This is a novella, so I don't want to talk too much about it, and it definitely does introduce you to this world in a way that makes it easier to jump into the ritual. This is technically book like 3 in the series or 4 in the series, but we had been told that it was better to read this one first and then jump into the ritual after, so that's exactly what I did, and I did really enjoy this one. I gave it a 4 stars. Not my favorite book that I've ever read. I think that with novellas, it really has to like pack a punch, but if I can give it a 5 star, and that one didn't, you know, all the way do this, but I still liked it. The smut was smutting, and the characters, they definitely needed a little bit more development, but I had a great time with it. Please keep in mind there is on-page SA in this book, so be wary of that. Be kind to yourself. Check the triggers before jumping into this one, but I did really enjoy it, and I think that it was a great way to start off the series. Up next, I read another chunky book, and that is Death by Laura Thalassa, the last and final book in the 4 Horsemen series, and this one was a little disappointing, I'm not gonna lie. I really wanted to love this book, especially after slogging my way through books 2 and 3. I really wanted to love it, and I just didn't love it as much as I wanted to. This series follows the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse that come down to wreak havoc on Earth and kill people, but it is their stories falling in love with human women. And we've all been leading up to Death's story and his relationship with Lazarus, who cannot die. And it is a relationship between the two of them, but also the culmination of trying to stop these horsemen from killing everyone left on Earth. And this had so much potential to really be amazing, but it felt very repetitive. It felt very stale after reading 3 other books in this exact same way, doing the exact same things, having the exact same conversations. It just felt very redundant and stale in a way that I couldn't fully connect with these characters. I think that some of this was very well written and very well talked about. There was a scene in here that made me sob like an absolute baby, but I just couldn't fully get connected with the story in a way that made it feel like I could give it anything more than a 3.5 star. I do like the fact that all 4 horsemen were included in this story. That made it feel a little bit more well-rounded, but unfortunately it wasn't a complete hit for me. 3.5, not terrible, but definitely not reread worthy. Moving on, I read The Ritual by Chantal Tessier. This is the full-length novel in the Lord series, the official first book in this series. This one follows Riot and Blakely. This book, you definitely follow more of the secret society set at this college campus that is very, very dark. These men are sanctioned into a secret society where they're put in very powerful positions all around the world to do things that will keep them in power. And when you're in this college and once you graduate, you are basically given a woman that will meet your every whims and needs while you are there, but you have to choose them. And Riot gets a woman chosen for him. He didn't really know anything about her before, but now that he has been forced to choose her, he will make sure that no one and nothing can touch her. And it is a relationship between the two of them. Again, very dark, very kink-filled, but also very triggering. Again, there is on-page sexual assault, so keep that in mind before you pick it up. It is definitely a chunky book, and I do think that the length of this could have been shorter and more condensed to make it feel a little bit more fulfilling, because there were definitely times where it was a slog to get through, but I do, again, really enjoy this type of setting. I like a dark college setting with a secret society. It kind of hit all of my things that I really like to read about in books, filled with red flags. Definitely not going to be for everyone, but I personally really enjoyed it, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Moving on to my second reread of the month. I'm not going to talk about this too much because it is a reread, but this is Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas, the second or third, depending on how you like to read the books, book in the Throne of Glass series. This one, I'm not going to talk about this one, but the first book in the series, if you do not know, is Throne of Glass. It follows a assassin called Selena Sardathian, who after a year in a salt mine as a slave has been freed in order to join this competition to become the King's Champion. If she wins, she will be the King's Champion for 4 years, and then she will gain her freedom back. And the plot of the series definitely evolves so much more from that first book. Even the second book is just vastly different from book 1, but it is a fantastic, quintessential fantasy romance that everybody should read. This is a reread for me. I did get all the way up to Queen of Shadows before I stopped reading the series, not because I didn't love it, but just because I didn't have anything else to read and I was getting a little sad by that. So I am going to finish the series before the end of the year, so you know, I won't be a fake fan anymore, but I did really love this. 5 out of 5 stars for me. So glad that I read it, and I cannot wait to continue on and finally finish the series. Moving on to my last reread, I wish that I could say it went as well as Crown of Midnight, but unfortunately, my rating for this book actually went down upon a reread, and this is Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. This is a dark, second chance, ex-boyfriend's brother romance. This one follows Erica, or Rika, and Michael. Erica has had a crush on Michael for as long as she can remember, and Michael is definitely very well known for being a participant in Devil's Night. Devil's Night is something that happens every Halloween where they go around and wreak havoc around the town, burning things, beating people up, you know, the normal stuff that you do on Halloween. But Rika ends up being able to join them 1 year, and things go awry. You know that they go awry because 3 of Michael's best friends end up getting sent to jail, and they are convinced that Rika is the person that leaked everything and put them in jeopardy. So they are getting her in a place that she is vulnerable and going to have their revenge. And it is a relationship between Rika and Michael. I didn't love this upon a reread. I had some issues with the first time I read it. I felt like some of the things that were done to Rika were completely unfounded and totally off the rails, and almost to a point where it's like you can't come back from that. How do you have a relationship with this person after you have done some of the things that you've done to her? And it felt a little icky. It was given a little ick, you know? And the amount of times that Rika says the name Michael in this book, my friends and I looked it up using the Kindle app and searched the name Michael, and it came up like 700 plus times. Like every other word was Michael, Michael, Michael. And I'm like, if you say that man's name one more time, I'm gonna freaking lose my mind. It's gonna be my 13th reason, I swear to God. So yeah, that was not my best experience. That being said, I did enjoy it. I had a good time with my reread. It wasn't terrible. I gave it a 3.5 star. Originally I rated it a 4, so it did drop a half of a star. But I'm glad that I reread it so I could be reacclimated with this story and with these characters, because the second book definitely does hinder a lot on book 1. But it just wasn't a favorite for sure. Up next, I read the Black Hat Coven book club pick for the month, and that is The Witch Haven by Sasha Peyton Smith. I think that's the author's name. But man, I did not like this one. I did not like this one at all. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 star, but thinking back on it, I probably would rate it a 1 just because I could find very few things about this book that I liked. This one follows a young girl who works at a seamstress office, and the very first day she is finishing up a client project late at night, and her boss comes in and tries to sexually assault her and kill her, and she finds out that she has magic and kills the man, and she is the prime murder suspect in this case. But before the cops can even question her, she gets whisked off by these people claiming that she has tuberculosis, I think, and she has to go to this sanitarium to have treatment. When she gets there, she finds out that it is a secret magic school for women, where they learn how to use their magic and be witches. During that time, she's also trying to figure out what happened to her brother, because he was murdered a year ago and she never found answers. But when she gets there, strange notes keep being placed in her room, and it has to do with her brother's death, and she wants to figure out what happened. It is a love triangle fantasy that was really, really bad, and I didn't like it at all. There were so many things wrong with this book. The characters, the world, the plot, the pacing, everything. It was just bad. I wanted to like it, and I just didn't like it. The character was so spineless and so stupid. She was making the most stupid decisions, and I'm not talking like teenage stupid. I mean like, honestly, why would you even do that? Stupid. So she was also very selfish to the people around her that had things going on in her life that she was just so unbothered by. She didn't care. She didn't want to know or care about any other person's struggle. It was only about her and finding her brother, and whatever means that she had to go about doing that, she was willing to sacrifice it all. And for me, it just wasn't a compelling read. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't have a fun time. Will definitely not be continuing on with the series. And technically, officially, I gave it 2.5, but just between you and I, 1 star. Then I picked up and read The Heir by Sophie Lark, and unfortunately, this was another disappointing read for me. Not that it was bad by any means. I still really enjoyed it, and I will definitely continue on with the series because I love Sophie Lark. But comparatively to the Brutal Birthright series, this just didn't hit as hard for me. This one follows, oh man, I'm not even going to be able to remember their names, Anna and Leo. Anna and Leo are 2 of the kids from the Brutal Birthright series. Leo is Camille and Seb's son, and Anna is Nicolaj and Nessa? Oh man, it's been so long since I read that series, but I think those are the characters. That's their daughter. And they end up going to Kingmaker, which is a school where you learn how to be a great mafia person, whether that is a leader or a spy or a person that handles the money. The school is just basically training you to go back into the world and be a part of the mafia. Both of them are basically going to be high leaders. They are heirs. They are supposed to be trained to do the utmost with the utmost power. And it is a best friends to lovers romance between the 2 of them. There's also a love triangle going on. There is some revenge happening on campus because, well, actually, I can't even say that. I won't. One of the characters that you have met in the past has a very dark relationship with one of the people that is at the school, and it definitely creates tension. And it is a romance between the 2 of them. It was good. It just wasn't great. I think that this one felt more YA than anything else, even though there were spicy scenes and there was a spicy good time. It just felt like I was reading a YA book until they decided to, you know, get it on. And it just wasn't as fun as I wanted it to be. I wanted more school. I wanted more intrigue. I wanted more something. And I feel like I didn't really get it. Granted, there is quite a bit of, you know, fun scenes that happen in here, but I don't know, it just felt lacking for me. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's not a bad book by any means, and I definitely will continue on with the series because I've heard the rest of the series gets even better as you continue, but this just wasn't a win for me. My last and final 5-star of the month was Mile High by Liz Tomford, which is great because it was our Sweeney Readers book club pick for the month of September, and I'm so glad that I loved it. This was definitely a gem, a highlight of my month, and oh my god, it was just so incredible. This one follows Stevie's and Xander. Stevie's is a flight attendant that takes high-profile sports athletes from game to game, and Xander's is a professional hockey player, and his team is the one that is contracted for this jet for the year, and it is a hate-to-love romance between Xander's and Stevie. There is also a non-fraternization clause that is standing between the company and the players, so it is a secret romance on top of that, and I loved it. I love a good billionaire romance with a man that is so willing to spend all of his money lavishing the woman that he just loves. But this also was a very, very emotional read. You have a lot of healing and familial trauma that was brought up in this book, as well as some really incredible plus-size representation that was done and handled so well. The quotes in here were incredible. Some of the things that happened between the characters were just so real and authentic that I loved it so much. The connection between the two characters and the chemistry was so palpable, and I had such a great time with this book. I tabbed so much, and there are so many things that I can literally flip to one page and pull a quote, and I'm like, yes, yes. Also, the spice was spicing. This man was so hot in bed and out of it, and I just had a great time with it. I'm so excited for book 2 in the series. We are reading it for the Sweeney Readers book club pick for October, so if you want to join us, we will be reading The Right Move by Liz Tomford, which is a basketball fake dating forced proximity romance. So really excited for that. So glad that I loved it, and definitely one of my new faves. We're getting there, friends, I promise. Next up, we have Dark Notes by Pam Godwin. This is a taboo student-teacher relationship between a 17-year-old and her piano teacher. I'm sure you can tell from my tone of voice that I didn't love this one. I gave it a 3-star. Again, it had potential. It just wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. And I definitely feel like I have read student-teacher relationships before, and none of them have quite given me the ick like this one has given me the ick. And I think it was just because she was 17, and I felt like the male main character really manipulated her and took advantage of a very unfortunate situation that she was in that didn't feel like it was coming from a place of love and affection and care, but more of a place of, I just want to get in your pants and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get there. Again, some quotes in here, absolutely fantastic. The writing style, so good. And I did like some of the interactions between the two main characters, but overall, I just couldn't get the ick factor out of my head. Again, 3 stars, not a bad rating, but I didn't even really explain it. This one follows, I don't even remember what their names are. The girl has grown up in a really tough and abusive sexually and physical family, and she definitely has a very tough upbringing, but she doesn't have a lot of money. Her father sold their bar to get her into this very prestigious school where she could learn piano and eventually go to college for music, but because he sold the bar and put all the money into her schooling, they didn't have very much money, so she was forced to sleep around to get money. And most of the time when she was sleeping around with these men, it wasn't of her own free will and of her own volition, so definitely check the trigger warnings. Lots of on-page sexual assault again, and she ends up in the teacher's class where he hones in on her because she's beautiful and gorgeous and 17 and busty and, you know, all the things that a teacher should be looking at when it comes to a 17-year-old girl, but he cannot keep his eyes off of her even though he's had a very sordid past with having relations with people at school. Not necessarily students, but he had a tumultuous relationship with the teacher at his last school that has forced him to come to this school, and it is a relationship between the two of them. I would say if you were interested, read it. It's not a bad book, but I definitely don't think that it was necessarily handled in the best ways for some of the things, but also I don't know, I'm conflicted. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. 3 stars. Up next, we have The Blood and Roses Part 1 by Callie Hart. This is a bind-up of 3 novellas that make up a 6-part novella series. This one follows a mafia guy and a girl. I think her name is, nope, I don't remember her name, I'm so sorry. And her sister has gone missing years prior, and she definitely feels like a shell of a person. She has been on the hunt to find out more information about her sister, and she ends up sleeping with a man at the very beginning to basically get information to find out where her sister went. And the man that she ends up sleeping with is the male main character of the story. He is a hard, you know, badass mafia guy that is willing to do whatever it takes to, you know, keep his clients quiet or whatever. I feel like I'm explaining this so bad, but they end up teaming up to find her sister, and there's a relationship between the two of them. I didn't dislike this. I think that the first two novellas were a little bit slow and has some pacing issues, and the writing was a little bit cringy at times, but the third novella was really good, and I had a great time with that one. I ended up giving this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It wasn't bad by any means, and I will definitely continue on with the series, but it's not a new favorite. Those books are going to tumble at any moment. Second to last book that I read this month was Hideaway by Penelope Douglas. This is the second book in the Devil's Night series, and I enjoyed this one more than the first book. I gave this one a 4 star. This one follows Kai, who has a second chance romance with a girl that he met 6 years ago on Devil's Night, and he wants her, can't have her, and goes on a mission to make her his. Wow, that was a lot of words. I don't want to talk about this book too much because, like I said, the second book definitely hinders quite a bit on book one, and the plot and the conflict of the story is all dependent on book one. So if you were interested, I would definitely say read the first book in the series, but as much as Kai is a hard person to like, he's definitely a cinnamon bun character underneath it all, and I really enjoyed how well he treated Banks in his own way. And overall, I liked the romance. I thought the spicy scenes were great. I didn't really love some of the things that happened between the family members and what this female main character was willing to tolerate, but I did also really enjoy the body dysmorphia conversation. It wasn't exactly as addressed as that, but I feel like that's the way that it was written. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I enjoyed this. I thought it was a really great read. 4 stars. I will definitely continue on with the series, and I'm excited to see what book 3 does because I'm not sure that character is capable of redemption. All right, the last and final book I want to talk about today is Inkblood, a Sister Scribe by Emma Torres. I'm so sorry, I probably butchered that. This one follows 3 characters, Joanna, Esther, and a man that I cannot remember. Esther is on the run, has been for many years. She has very strict instructions to stay somewhere once a year, and in November she has to leave to go to a place new, or her life and everybody that she loves will be in danger. Joanna lives at home with her father. At the very beginning of the story, he dies at the hands of a magic book, and Joanna is stuck in this house protecting the home and setting its wards to protect all the books and the spells that are located inside. And then you have another man who is a scribe who is capable of writing spells into books but is completely incapable of practicing magic. And it is a story that is kind of like a mystery where they're trying to uncover the meaning behind some of these books, why they are made, how magic works, and what significance they play in this world. I thought this was a really fun and intricate fantasy story. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't my new favorite, but it kept me engaged. I was very intrigued. This mystery plot was very well paced, and I really enjoyed the characters. I think that some of the plot points were a little bit predictable, but other than that, I thought it was a great read. I really enjoyed the writing, and I will definitely try to pick up more by this author in the future. If this stack doesn't fall, it'll be a miracle. But that is all of the books that I was able to read in the month of September. This video is so long. I really have to plan out mid-month wrap-ups because the stacks are stacking, and it's getting intense, and I apologize. But let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about today and what you thought of them. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, feel free to share with me what you read in the month of September. What was your high? What was your low? I would love to hear all of that in the comments below. Anybody I mentioned in today's video, I will link in the description below if you want to go check them out and show them some love. That is the end of this video, though. If you did make it to the end and you want to leave an emoji, leave a blood drop emoji for Blood Magic and Inkblood Sister Scribe. But that is the end of this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. And of course, leave any comments, questions, and suggestions in the comment section below. And I will see you in the next video. Bye. Baby, turn it down like a sweet and ready. Keep it nice and steady.